Well, I'm trying to get record to happen. Okay, I'm really stretching my qualifications here today, apparently. Next week, I thought we would celebrate this particular group of people. Wow, everybody's kind of on the edges. What'd you do to them?
It's very strange. I'm not clear.
I thought we'd celebrate this group since next week is technically the last week of this particular session of the Rabbi's classes by doing an omelet bar. How does that sound? Okay, would you be willing to come early? Sure. Okay, so if we get an omelet bar set up by 9 o'clock, then we can have an hour of just fellowship and socializing and get to know one another, because we've all been in this group together now for quite a while, but we might not even know each other really all that much. So I thought that might help do that. And we might even bring in some celebrity cookers. Chefs, right, exactly. Larry has agreed to be one of them. That's one celebrity. I'll probably do one because eggs are the only things I know how to cook. And my husband's going to come next week too. So, but if anybody else wants to cook, fine. I was thinking we'd have 4 burners going at a time if I can get them. And maybe I can even talk Eric into coming and cooking. He likes to cook. So.
My husband spent his college years cooking a Village Inn, so I volunteer him.
All right, well, we're going to have 4 burners going so you can all take turns, you know. So if you're okay with that and you're all willing to come, I'm going to put a little basket out to try and recoup some of the costs, but mostly it's just for fun. So if you guys would come, and you can bring friends, that's fine. We'll be here an hour early starting at 9. Okay? All right, great. Thanks for the reminder.
That's what I'm here for. Good morning. So let me set up the Torah portion before we start going into the reading of this Hasidic material. Jethro, that's the name of the Torah portion. What happens in the Torah portion named Jethro? By the way, there are only 2 or 3 Torah portions that are named after non-Jews. Who was Jethro?
Is it Jethro?
It's what, Jethro?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it our Jethro?
What do you mean, our Jethro? It's my Jethro. What do you mean? Who?
Is he the father of Leah and...
No, not Jacob, Jethro. Who was Jethro in the Bible? Oh, he was a father-in-law of Moses.
Okay. Yeah.
Father-in-law of Moses, the father of Tzipporah. The name of Moses' wife was Tzipporah, which is fantastic because Tzipporah in Hebrew means the bird. So their relationship was not really clear, and Jethro, this is before they are at the mountain. They are at this Torah portion. They are in the mountain. Jethro comes to give Moses advice how to organize the people, because Moses has been working non-stop as a judge, and when you have 600,000 people or plus, you spend a lot of time. You're dealing with Jews. So Moses became exhausted. Jethro brings his daughter and the 2 children of Moses to Moses and says, what is your relationship with your wife? It's an amazing encounter between Moses. He tells Moses, if you don't pay attention to your wife and kids, I'm going to take them back to the tent. Jethro is not Jewish. He is a priest of another group of people, which is interesting. The Torah portion that deals with the 10 Commandments is named after Jethro. So this is the Torah portion where the 10 Commandments are there, and all the event before and a little bit after Mount Sinai. This is a huge Torah portion, and therefore in this Torah portion you can do amazing mystical writings with. I mean, do you remember what's going on? What's going on in the moment of giving the Torah to the Israelites? What's happening?
They're having a lot of fun.
first of all, they are shocked because there is almost like an earthquake, and the mountain is smoking, and all kind of noises of the ram's horn around. It's a beautiful kind of a scene, mystical one. And so let's go into this, and it starts with the verse in Exodus 19:3, and Moses went up to God. So we can read this verse for hundreds of times and not pay attention. Why is this verse, Moses went up to God, so powerful to start a commentary?
Because a man is going to encounter God.
Yeah, I mean, this is something powerful. He went up to God. What is the meaning of going up? What exactly one needs to experience when we go up?
You can go to brighter light.
Okay, closer to God, which,
He's entering his kingdom instead of God sending someone down to Moses. It's more of a personal.
beautiful, beautiful. It's the Jewish response, in a way. You have to go up. Don't expect me to come down at this moment. Good morning.
Good morning, sorry I'm late.
We all noticed that. How are you?
Good morning.
Good morning.
What are you laughing at? I know.
Let's start. I need a volunteer again to start reading it.
Our duty to serve our Creator is listed in two modes, both love and awe, as is well known. Even the angels live with these two forms of service.
Okay, so the beginning, immediately, there are two modes, two ways to serve God. One is with what? Love, and the other one, awe or fear. Okay, and even the angels are using the same formats to be in relationship with the Creator. Continue.
The prophet tells us that the holy beings ran back and forth.
You remember this strange verse from Ezekiel. There's a whole description, bizarre description. I think Ezekiel was under the influence of some of those pills that they're trying to remove from the market. Anyway, it's an amazing scene. He sees all kind of animals on wheels, and the wheels have eyes. If you have a chance, go to Ezekiel 1, and this is where he becomes initiated into the work with God. Every prophet has some kind of a moment where this kind of initiation takes place. I think all of them were under the influence of severe drugs. I'm trying to find them for you for next week. We're going to mix it with the omelets. And so all of you will have those kind of experience. Okay, now comes a name, Rashi. Which Rashi, I need to explain who Rashi is. Rashi is a Jewish commentator, a French commentator, that most of the commentaries of the Bible are done by him, and he is the initial one. And so when you open a book of commentary, a book that is pages and pages, you'll see Rashi. You'll see in the middle Torah text, and on the side you'll see Rashi commentary, you'll see Ibn Ezra commentary, you'll see Rashbam commentary, who was the grandchild of Rashi. So that's how we study commentary on the Torah portion. Those books are called Mikraot Gdolot, and you can buy them, and they are all in English now. You don't have to worry. So you'll have the English translation of the Torah portion and the commentary around the page. Yes?
What era or what years?
Wonderful. 11th century, and then you have 12th century, and then you have 13th century, all in the same place, on the same page. And the way to study it is just to put your ear on the page, and you can hear the discussion. And then that's how we study. You put everything there. And some of this commentary contradict each other. No one contradicts Rashi. Rashi is accepted as the bottom line commentary. So here is his name mentioned. So please continue.
Which Rashi Rashi explains as they're running closer to gaze upon the Shekinah.
The Shekhinah. No. We need to work on that with you. You need to have the ch. If you don't have the ch, you're not Jewish. So if you want to fake it, use the ch. Shekhinah. Okay, that's better. What is the Shekhinah? We had it last week. What is Shekhinah in the language of the mystics? What is the Shekhinah? Is the feminine presence of God in our world. The feminine presence of God. So, start again. Rashi explains.
Which Rashi explains as they're running closer to gaze upon the Shekinah.
All right, forget it. I'm giving up. The Shekhinah, yeah.
That hovers directly over them, and then moving back and hiding out of awe. Thus, running back and forth can be interpreted as referring to love and fear.
Okay, so he explains again this mystic experience of the prophet Ezekiel, and the description is that those angels are running forward and backward, and this helps Rashi explains the two modes that we can have a relationship with God. The love, when you get closer, and the running away, which is the awe or fear. That's what we do, aren't we?
What are they afraid of?
Where even the angels cannot bear the awesomeness of God's presence in their world. What are they afraid of? This is the description of what the prophet Ezekiel feels. I'm willing to be initiated in this relationship with you. By the way, it's not Ezekiel, it's everyone here in the room. I mean, we have moments when we are so close and we get it and we understand what this is all about and wow, I discover why I was created. And then there are moments that we are so far away, confused, distracted, in the darkness. There is this kind of relationship with God, of going forward and going backward. No?
But what are we afraid of?
What are we afraid of? To bear the light. I think sometimes the light is too strong for us. We can't handle it. We get too close and then we freeze. And we don't know what to do with this gift of being able to be close. And sometimes we are afraid. God appears as a absolutely fire that we need to run away from. It's not clear to us. Yeah. What are we afraid of? What are we afraid of? Yes?
I think maybe part of what we're afraid of is a loss of control because there's a certain amount of surrender to that. And so there's a loss of control.
You can. This is the same idea that I mentioned when we talked about the burning bush. I mean, you get to the burning bush, but you stop, God says to Moses, take your shoes, you cannot get closer. There is definitely this in our relationship with God, of when we get closer, sometimes we run away. We don't know what to do with this. Maybe we melt with what we experience, and it's too much for us. Beautiful. Beautiful teaching. What else? Why are we afraid of?
Sometimes we're afraid of love. The undying love of God, we're afraid of that. So that love can be so overpowering.
Overpowering, strong. Ozzy?
Well,
That was enough. That was a good answer.
if we're a person who believes faithfully in God, then we have a personal God, let's say.
Personal
A
relationship.
personal relationship with God. Is it possible that our fear is that our personal God is going to just give us a smack across the head at some point? That we're really scared that whatever happens to us that we consider not good comes from God. I don't happen to feel that way, but person does, it seems legitimate.
Yeah, there's a fear of getting too close to God because of the smack in the head.
Why do we run away from relationships with other people?
She won't stop.
Might have to
It's
give up
a
something.
little bit the same way, except for, God is so powerful to us. Why do we run away from relationships? I think it's fear of intimacy, fear of letting that person know exactly who you are inside. There's all kinds of fears of why we run away from relationships.
Beautiful.
But God already knows all about us.
That's
We're
true.
not equals.
That's
We're not
true.
equals by any means.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I'm not,
So part of that fear is just wandering into a situation that, we love control and we don't have any control anymore at that point. There's no way we're gonna read this situation. We wouldn't have a clue, we just have to lay it all out there and be completely vulnerable.
yeah.
I think even in relationships, there's a fear of not being good enough. It's
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is possible that we will feel that maybe we're not doing what God wants us to do. Maybe we are missing the mark. But this, it's a little bit different message in the movie we saw. What was the name of the movie? Walk with Me. So Carlos and I went to a movie that was not really publicized. I mean, there was a group of people. Maybe you can talk a little bit more.
It was a screening.
A screening
Yeah.
of a movie about.
It was about mindfulness, and it was about Ted Hahn. It's his movie. And his Plum Village and the mindful activities that he holds in order to help create mindful living. And so you're going through his life, or his day there. There was a lot of silence in the movie. There wasn't a lot of narrative.
Yeah, which the Jewish people that witnessed the movie were not comfortable. There was so much silence. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was, for me, it was very powerful. I walked away with a sense of...
But there's no in and out. There's no coming close and running, which this is a little bit of a different kind of teaching. So.
Well, I think there was. I mean, if you saw when Ted Hahn was sitting, and then the young man behind him, and Ted Hahn was so calm, and the young man's going...
Didn't know what to do, yeah.
He's trying to meditate, he's fidgeting, and then he sits still, he looks around, he yawns, and, right? So that's kind of an imagery of...
Of running away,
willing to go inside, but then not willing to go inside, and
not knowing, yeah.
You know?
Anyway, there's a group in Omaha, Nebraska that is following the teaching of that prophet who lives in France. I was trying to imagine people in my congregation going to a retreat in that monastery. They will last 5 minutes. It was interesting. There's a fear of letting go and going to those kind of programs.
It's noble silence.
Yeah. Let's continue. Next paragraph, please.
I'll read.
Yeah, please.
As we start to serve, we begin by drawing forth a sense of awe. This means true awe before our exalted Creator, not a fear of punishment, which is merely superficial. Such real awe does not come to a person easily, but requires a regular, determined effort, concentrating on the Creator without a moment's ceasing.
Okay. I mean, that's similar to what we experienced watching that movie. So how do you serve God? You start what? What is the advice here? Okay.
Well, to concentrate, a regular focusing on God.
What is this?
Somebody's wrong.
Oh, okay.
Practice, it's a practice.
Daily practice. You can, yeah.
You train yourself to get closer to it.
Conscious effort.
Conscious effort, awareness, being there constantly, and being aware of that relationship. It doesn't come to a person easily, requires a regular, determined effort, concentrating. So this is, in a way, a conversation about how do you do this? How do you start the day What happens in the morning? So I mentioned to you that we Jews are required to say the Shema. You wake up in the morning and you say, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one." That's in a way a password, similar to the computer stuff, you know. You enter through some kind of a portal. And then what happens the rest of the day that keeps you close to or in the portal? So, for example, we are told that we need to say 100 blessings every day. And so, how many of you bless the bagels before you start eating it? It was from the bagel bin, so they are Jewish bagels. I mean, how many of you will bless after you're done eating? So we have like a list of 100 blessings that we are required to say every day. We also have, for example, we had a scholar at Temple Israel that came to initiate Rabbi Stoller as the rabbi last weekend. So there is a blessing upon meeting a scholar. And the blessing is, thank you, God, for sharing your wisdom with this man or with this woman. We have a blessing for everything, including a blessing for being able to bless. Ozzy knows all of them. Well, we are also allowed to make up blessings. Yeah. What do you do if you see a rainbow? There's a blessing for rainbow. What if you see, you smell a spice that you didn't use in the kitchen? So, for example, we have this ceremony at the end of Shabbat, and it's called Havdalah, a ceremony of separation from the Sabbath and the rest of the week. So, for us, the weekend is not a weekend; is the place to recharge the battery for the week to come. And so we have a blessing on spices, but requirement are spices that you don't use in a daily cooking. Has to be a whole different spice. So you have this aroma of something you never used. Yes, you have a question.
Yeah, I think this ties in well with the message in the 11 o'clock service yesterday from the imam, in which he spoke about how they concentrate on the attributes of God by chanting
The name of God.
Attributes of God,
Yeah.
the name of God.
And so he went through a list. Yeah. So God has 99 names in the Bible. And so one way to concentrate and be aware is to recite the names of God. Yeah.
I was taught to bless the person that I'm angry at every day for 2 weeks. So I started out saying, "Thank you, God, for Trudy." And by the end of 2 weeks, I was saying, "Thank you, God, for Trudy."
Wow, what a discipline. Excellent.
Is Trudy here?
Here, no.
That was an unfortunate accident.
I don't think we have it in Judaism.
To bless someone with whom we're angry?
Yeah. No, that's why I can never understand this need on the part of people to forgive the killer in Texas. I mean, so, and I hear it all the time. Let's pray for, so he also died. So let's pray for forgiveness. You will not find in Jewish teaching prayer of forgiveness for the killer in Texas, ever. I think sometimes I find that this is the solution that some politicians, well, instead of working on guns control, this is what, let's pray. It's always praying. For the killer? No, I want to be angry. I don't want to forgive him. Let me deal with my feelings, yes.
What if you learn what made him a monster?
Why would this help me understand him? The answer came immediately. He is mentally, that's what mentally ill. We're still waiting for a response for the killer in Las Vegas. Why? At the end, everyone will be put, it's so easy to put all of them in the mental category. That gives us some relief of finding the real solution to the gun control. That's my thinking, yeah.
How do you process something that happens to you, someone who hurts you or your family?
How do I process it?
If you don't forgive him, it makes him more important. Does that make sense?
I tend to work with that person about. There's a need for working. In this case, he died, so there was no way to talk to him. Depends what is the action that was taken about hurting my family. I'm capable also of killing someone, yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting.
Some years ago, after Root, I think his name was, killed the 9 people in the black church. I remember watching All In with Chris Hayes, and he was outside the courtroom. And what he experienced brought him to tears, and he said, maybe I ought to get back to church, because the relatives stood and faced him and told them how they hurt and how angry they are, but they forgive him. And that felt like a bomb in politics and in the country. How can he do that? And it was very moving to see that.
Yeah.
It was just unbelievable.
I respect those feelings. It's something that does not occur inside of me at that moment. But I definitely respect those people that feel this way. Okay, let's continue.
This will get you through the first gate, that of awe. This is the gateway to, I would say, Yahweh.
Yeah, I mean, in Psalm.
In Psalm.
Again, they're bringing proof text to everything they say. So there are gates that help you go and get to where you need to get. At the end is, of course, the Shekhinah, or the presence of God. Go on.
It is with this that Aaron shall enter the holy place, from Leviticus. But once you have already attained such a sense of awe, it is easy to add the quality of love.
So we have to start it with what? With a fear.
Fear.
Staying away from the burning bush. Not getting so close. There has to be awe or fear. Go on.
Love is called the inner gate. The same is true in an earthly kingdom. A person who wants to come into the king, having crossed through the outer courtyard, will have an easier time getting through the inner gates. The guards at those gates will see that their compatriots at the outer gates have already let him through.
Wow. This constant, we have on the Day of Atonement, we have to change the language that we address God. God is definitely the king, and there is a section in the Rosh Hashanah service which is called kingdoms or sovereignty, and you have those gates that you need to step in. By the way, also in relationship with people, there are definitely gates and partitions that are maybe invisible, but you don't approach them. If you want to get to the intimacy that you talk to, intimacy is a gate that is inside, a portal that is getting closer and closer to the friend that you want to elicit relationship from. So the same with God. I mean, everyone will notice already if you went through the awe that you are getting closer. Love is easy to add to the feeling of awe. And maybe it's an interesting discussion about the gate not being, the first gate not being love. Some fear that will lead you to enter into the next gate. Yes?
I feel like maybe there's something wrong with me. I don't feel any fear of God. I feel trust and love.
You already passed through few gates. You're closer. That's fine. Just because those gates exist behind you doesn't mean that you are not in a better place. So what's wrong with you? Nothing is wrong with you. You were there. Actually, we are jealous at how close you are. We are still trying to go through the gates. So, you okay? Nothing is wrong with you. Remember now, they are at the bottom of the mountain, and it's about the climbing and Moses going up. Now comes actually the discussion of how he's going to connect everything to Moses. So please, who wants to read this paragraph on the top? Loud and clear. Yes?
Thus it says first that Moses went up to God,
Elohim, yeah.
And afterwards, to Moses he said, ascend to Yahweh.
Okay, so you have the word Elohim, which is plural for gods, and then says the another verse that ascend to Yahweh. Okay, now comes the explanation.
The name Elohim is mentioned first, followed by the tetragrammaton.
Yeah, tetragrammaton are the 4 letters in Hebrew of God's name. So, Yahweh, it's a Yud, a Hey, a Vav, and a Hey. I mean, none of us know how to pronounce it. Just because I said Yahweh doesn't mean that this was God's name. Only God knows how to pronounce God's name. But this helps us to see the difference between Elohim, which is what? God's, and the special Yahweh name, which is the tetragram. Go on.
This is because Elohim refers to judgment, the realm of din or the awesome. Yahweh refers to pure compassion, leaning toward Hesed, which is the side of love. The verses mean that first Moses went up to God, the quality of awe. He reached it on his own by dint of great effort and concentration. Once he was there, he was told to ascend to Yahweh, to the place of love, which then came easily to him.
Wow. Is it possible that only because of some terrible experiences we have, that we're able to understand God when we got to the love part? After we came out of some experiences or some moments in our life that were horrific, and there is no one here that is exempt from that. Is it possible that that's what pushed us, drove us, brought us closer to the measure of love? Suddenly we understood everything. You're shaking your head. You see, so you're in a good place now. Now, are you going to be able to stay there all the time?
Probably not.
Yeah, I mean, no, yes, say yes.
Yes.
Yes, I'm going to try to stay there. Probably not. No.
But we go a little bit, some days I feel really close to God, and some days I search a little bit more. And
You're ahead of many of us here. Yeah, good for you. Yeah, so this is what happened to Moses. This climbing to the mountain is so fantastic as an image. I mean, by now he is about 80 years old. Pretty mature, Moses. Climbing the mountain, even he needs to climb the mountain. Even he needs to go through the experience of fear and awe before he's invited to the top to receive what? Wow. If he was angry and in awe and afraid, why would God give him the best gift that we received at the bottom of the mountain? He needed to move higher to accept the words that are part of the Torah and the commandments. I mean, according to our tradition, the 40 days on the top of the mountain were not spent in writing down the 10 commandments. To have dictation of the 10 commandments take 3 minutes. You know them all. So what else happened in the mountain? Oh, in the mountain he received everything that will ever exist. So he received there the Talmud and whatever consequences of Jewish writing and teaching appeared after. He received everything. He was the only one that knew everything. Not only everything that happened in the past, but everything that will ever be published. That's what happened with the 40 days and nights. There was a Judaism 10, not just 101. It was everything. So he has to receive it when he's in a better place. A better place for Moses was the love that he felt as a result of that invitation to the mountain. But you have to go through different gates together. Okay, let's continue with the next teaching. Our cantor is beginning to chant. Perfect. It's all Jewish chants. Okay, who would like to start with "We children"? This is the verse first, and then the commentary. The verse: "You have seen that I have done to Mitzrayim, to Egypt." You know now the word for Egypt in Hebrew, Mitzrayim. "How I raised you upon the wings of eagle and have brought you to me." That's a verse from Exodus. This verse is packed with good teaching, especially mystical teaching. Why? Just look at the verse. What are the problems that one sees in the verse? I mean, start with everyone. On the wings of eagle? Why eagles? What is special about this bird, eagles, that has to be used in this teaching? What about upon the wings? Brought you to me. So the whole experience of Egypt was for what reason?
Draw closer to God.
Totally. To try to understand God, to try to figure out the awesomeness of the miracle. I mean, think about what they have witnessed before they got to the mountain. I mean, all of them should be sent to special institutions with lifelong therapists. Think about the experience in Egypt. Forget about slavery. Witnessing the plagues, witnessing the chaos that took place in order to redeem them. And so here comes the commentary on that verse. By the way, maybe someone already can tell me why eagles? What is special about the eagle that none of the other birds can do? How does the eagle carries the baby eagles?
Talons.
The what?
And their talons.
Underneath the wings to protect them. That's the only bird that carries the babies underneath. That's why they fly so high. So the arrows, that's why they need to fly so high.
There's the famous passage in Isaiah. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles.
Yeah, it's
Run and not be weary, walk and not faint.
beautiful.
Yeah.
So the eagle is definitely a bird that is used constantly in the Bible because of the care, the love, the protection of the children of the eagle. Baby eagles. How do you call the... How do you... Beautiful. It's one word I didn't pick up in English yet. All right, so who wants to read it? Please.
We children of Israel are called seekers of your oneness. We are ever questing after the unity and oneness of God. Even when we are at the lowest of rungs, we search our souls for ways to serve our blessed Creator. This is logical, since every Jew is obligated not to rest even for a moment, but to go on pursuing that quest. This is the whole of human life, the very purpose of creation.
Wow. That's it. That's why the movie That's why the silence, they're not doing anything, not being married. What? I mean, we don't have monks, monasteries in Judaism. There was a period of the Isim next to the Dead Sea Scroll, Dead Sea, that removed themselves from the life in Jerusalem of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. That community doesn't exist anymore. So in Judaism, those communities are not celebrated. Where we find the Jews, you need to go to the marketplace, to the noise, to the hassle, to the marketplace. That's where you belong, because that's where you can do charity. That's where you can witness human relationship. So really, I tried few times leading services. We have this place in the service on Friday and Saturday, on every day, of silent meditation. Silent meditation for my Jews was the worst time, because I tried a few times. I tried to do 2 minutes silent meditation, and one day I actually told them 4 minutes. Just meditate. Didn't do anything for a minute, sitting on the bima, a temple, and watching them. After 20 seconds, I start seeing the fidgeting. They ran out of what to think about. It was very, I mean, really, it's a challenge to ask Jews to meditate. That's why we have Jews that went to yoga and are Boo Jews. I love those Boo Jews among us, which is great. No, it doesn't bother me. That's great. You guys go to yoga and meditate. Find a way. We have more and more Jews involved in meditation and yoga now. The yoga opened a door for some of the people that couldn't do it at the synagogue to be able to practice. I mean, you need to practice this. Yes?
I think that's true no more today. People in general having the inability to sit and meditate. We are bombarded on all sides by all of this technology and things, and we don't put that technology totally away ever just to sit, because our mind is very so I think it's more so now than it used to be 50 years ago, the ability just to sit and enjoy the silence.
Azriel, how is this in Bethel? How do you guys deal with meditation? And
I would agree that it's a more universal
Problem.
yeah. We don't offer that up as a portion of the service. There is no call for a moment of silence. So maybe we avoid it.
yeah, no, it's not part of who we are. What can I say? It's not part of who we are.
Well, because when you're quiet, you have to think about things. You have to, things go through your mind, and you can't, when you're quiet, you have to think about what's coming to your mind. When you're not quiet, you can ignore it. You can ignore those things that are in your brain.
But I think it's also the call for action in our religion. I mean, this constantly, there's not, I mean, it's, you have to do. You have to do. Do. That's, I mean, there's constantly a list of things that we need to do. And maybe the time for meditation will avoid our doing. So there is this kind of peace inside of us,
Well, do you consider the silent part of the Amida a meditative thing?
At the end,
Yeah, well, okay then.
The silent Amida.
Yeah.
But, okay, and then the repetition of the same Amida in vocal way.
For me, meditation isn't about thinking, it's about listening for what God might have to say to me.
Beautiful.
Which is then directing me to go do whatever it
Beautiful.
might be.
So it allows you to listen to what God wants from you. Beautiful. Yeah, you're ahead of us. Yeah. Don't ever apologize where you are. It's fine. Now you have to move further.
Different traditions do.
Yes.
Different traditions have different approaches built in. I've heard it said about our United Church of Christ that we have built in a preference for action. That distinguishes us from some other Christian denominations, that we prefer action, knowing that it might be the wrong action sometimes, but we'd rather take action than not do anything. That's kind of built into our particular DNA.
Well, that's why you guys are so fitting in the Tri-Faith Initiative. That's how at the end, we couldn't do it with other groups. Chris, do you want to address this in this church, the meditation piece and the...
Well, I'm pretty sure that there was spiritual practice that was done even before Eric got here, but Eric is really big on spiritual practice and meditation and prayer and all that kind of stuff. My entire dissertation was written on the environment that was built that allowed for us to discern whether or not we should go to the Tri-Faith, and it was built on spiritual practice. So the idea of intentionally listening for God, for group conversation, bringing people from the community in to talk to us, taking our story out and talking to them. Anything that brings us closer to listening for what God is already doing in the world and how we might participate in that is considered a spiritual practice. So conversation, community, participation, prayer, meditation, all those things. And we have been about doing that for the last 10 years, and it's really become a very supporting part of this congregation, even if you don't realize you're doing it. Every Sunday morning, we sit for 2 minutes and they examine. We do meditation and musical meditations within the sermons. We do all kinds of stuff like that. So it's very much a part of the community here.
And I think this will be a great gift to give to the Jews. I think by being there, you guys will help us understand that piece. We really don't have it. Part of it, I mean, we also don't have, we fail completely in RSVP. We fail because we always worry that maybe the Cossacks will come, or maybe there'll be a pogrom. Jews never respond to invitations. I mean, that's one of my experience as a rabbi. It's very bizarre. We'll have a program and ask for RSVP, and no one will send anything except in the last hour of the event when it's too late to know how many dishes to prepare. Part of it is, I think it's one of the trauma in our DNA of not knowing if I'm going to be there. Maybe something bad will happen. It's a bizarre, yeah.
In defense
Oh.
of my religion and brotherhood, getting back to meditation for a moment, did not the old Rabbanim take an hour
Before praying.
They prayed in the morning to prepare themselves
To pray.
quiet
Yeah, beautiful.
prayer.
Yeah.
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 So
But
if we went back to where we started, it might help.
Yeah, I mean, but what happens really in the minutes before Jews come to pray? What happens? They don't prepare themselves to pray. They prepare themselves to meet Mr. Goldberg. I mean, the conversation in the...
Well, that's today, yes.
I know.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's a teaching about the rabbis preparing themselves before. What do you do before you pray? You pray that you'll be able to pray. But we did a lousy job in teaching the Jews. Let's continue.
We, however, do not possess the breadth of mind needed to know how to rouse our spirits in each and every moment. We see from our own experience that sometimes a person can serve God in a particular way for a certain period of time, but as time passes, this quality of service grows old. As time passes, and it is not as vital and beloved as it once was.
Wow. Stop there. How true about sometimes our engagement. We do something, and after a while, we're committed to that, and after a while it gets old, and we don't. We just leave this. And here goes the name of the teacher that all those students talk about. The Baal Shem Tov. Again, the Baal Shem Tov He is the master of Hasidism. Baal Shem Tov means the master of the good name. That wasn't his real name, but that's the title that his students gave him. So now he will go into the teacher and say the following. Read the verse.
The Baal Shem Tov read the verse, "Cast us not off at the time of our old age," from Psalms, to mean, do not let time cast you into oldness. Sometimes a person's way of serving grows old because of the passage of time. Amen.
Well, I mean, is this accepted? I mean, this translation of the verse is accepted? Yeah, I mean, we need to make it fresh. We need to make it new every day. The way to serve God every day has to be something renewal, because it becomes sometimes the routine in the relationship, and we don't pay attention, and we don't have the time to listen to what God wants us to do. We keep doing the same, and sometimes the same becomes old, and that's why we need to make sure that we don't have God cast us into oldness. Go on.
In the same way I read the verse, may your youth be renewed like that of the eagle, Psalms. Our sages were aroused to explain that the eagle, or phoenix, shed its feathers every 1,000 years and renews its youth.
Okay, so those are the two people that are suggesting the teaching. And so what's unique about the eagle? I don't know if it's true, but someone said that they shed their feathers. Wow. What? Every 1,000 years. And this gives now a whole different commentary as a result of the knowledge. Now comes the word feathers. So what about feathers, please?
Feathers indicate a sort of garment. It is well known that all of our devotion, including the actual commandments, are nothing other than a garment. A person of true insight understands that even the different appearance in which God is garbed for the sake of human worship all lead to the same place, indicating his blessed oneness.
Wow. Remember the garb piece that I mentioned a few weeks ago? The reason why God doesn't appear to us all in the same way is why? Because he's garbed differently. God has many costumes in a way. God has many ways to hide God's self. Again, the awesomeness of what will happen to us when we finally get to after the gate of love is dangerous. God does it for our sake. Only Moses, and this is, Moses, I mean, few prophets were capable of understanding the depth. Moses was unique in his intellectual abilities, but even Moses only got a little bit of who God is. The way we understand the relationship between God and Moses is, philosophically, that the bottom part of God's intellect, because God has a brain too, God's intellect touched the top of the intellect of Moses. That's all what Moses was able to perceive. God is a lot more complicated. It takes a lot of work to be able to go through all the gates and finally get there, but even if we get there, it is possible we're not going to see what we pretended to see. I think that's why sometimes this lengthy conversation about what God is boring. Because it doesn't lead us to any place. I mean, there was an awesome, I feel jealous where you are now as a result of revealing the way you perceive God. That's fantastic. But are we there? Where are we? And when we get there, are we going to understand what it is? So those are the kind of teachings that Judaism puts in front of us. A person of true insight understands that even the different appearance in which God is garbed for the sake of human worship. We come to pray and we discover that God is garbed. It's so hard to understand exactly everything. Continue.
It is for our sake that the Creator appears in such varied garments, so that each living person may be able to arouse the inner heart to constantly discover God anew. When the category through which you now serve grows old for you, you will be able to switch it for another garment, finding a place for it in your soul.
So what is this teaching us about God?
What I keep thinking is that since we are all different, God has to come to us in different ways for us to understand.
But maybe we don't wait for God to come to us. We go up. God is inviting Moses to come up to the mountain. Maybe that's how we need to go. We need to find our mountains, climb them, and discover, by the way, that while we are climbing, there are other people that are climbing on the same mountain. That's why mountains are so powerful. Because you don't really see until you get to the peak who else is there. All of us, and I think this is a great image for the tri-faith. We are all climbing the same mountain, and we are sometimes not capable of seeing who else is climbing because they are in a different place on the mountain climbing. That's why the intensity of having the buildings next to each other, being able to understand what everyone is doing, everyone's climb, it will raise the level of all of us understanding what this world is all about. Yeah.
It also do with how we perceive God as a child.
Well,
Maybe you're saying the same thing. Maybe it's the same thing, but I'm just putting it against the same. It's a lot of, as a child, we perceive God as this warm, loving, caring being who's there. But as we grow in our faith, we perceive God in different ways and in different as guards.
totally.
So that all of us in here right now are at different levels in our belief, and we're all seeing God in a different way.
Yeah. And I think by locating next to each other, which has never been done, this can add such a strength to all the climbers. When I know that the people next door are climbing the same mountain, wow, I'm not alone in this search.
So isn't that the imagery that is in the Phoenix affirmations? Affirmation 1 is what you're talking about in this book?
I think so. I think that's why we got close to each other. When I speak with Eric or Chris, I think I'm talking to two Jews. Especially when next week there'll be omelets, so we know we are in the right place. Let's continue. Next reader, please. All this is brought about, please. Anyone?
All this is brought about by God for our good and the perfection of our souls, so that we remain awake and do not fall into old age. This is the shedding of feathers to which I have referred. When things grow old, you shed the former way of service and renew your youth, finding some wise clue that will awaken a renewal within you, leading you to a different garment.
Wow. So there is a need for all of us to shed those feathers and not to be afraid of the shedding of the feathers. Just because at this moment you have a different relationship with God through some kind of a ritual or some kind of a gate that you're going to go through, be happy. It's okay. Don't start punishing yourself because you think you're not doing the right thing. Maybe what you're doing now needs to happen. Maybe God is calling you now to come up to the mountain, and the route that you are experiencing is a different one. So let's celebrate. I like the idea of we become young, with energy again. I was so worried about retirement and what will happen to my spiritual life. I found it here. I mean, I think God works in mysterious ways. Why would I be offered office here exactly when I retired? It's fantastic. It definitely made me 15 years younger. I think this is how we need to look at our search.
One thing that Eric said when we were just starting to enter the 40 days of discernment that we did was that no matter what, we have changed. Whatever decision we make, the change has occurred already, and I've been thinking about that all the way through this, that however you perceived it, however it was garbed, there has been change.
Beautiful. I think some people in the temple are very jealous at you because you guys didn't have to leave the building. So we started with a building, and you guys are helping us to understand that there is something larger. It was never about the building. It was never about combined parking lots. That was the garbing of what we went through. It wasn't about that. It was about God's calling us to climb up together. That's what a change is. It's a great revelation. And there are people that we explain to them what we're doing, and they will never get it. So what? So some of them left, and this creates stress on the budget of this church. There will be other ways of getting there. And sometimes when you climb the mountain, you will see people that are going to fall down. I mean, our goal is to try to help to raise other people too.
In mountaineering, there's the practice of roping up or clipping in together. Everybody's attached to the same rope, so if somebody falls or starts plunging down a crevasse or something.
But they are connected to other people. Yeah. I'm not envisioning any falling down the mountain. But that's why this Torah portion opens itself like a mouth to be interpreted. They're there at the mountain. What's going on? Okay, let's finish this paragraph. Now we explain.
Now we can explain. You have seen what I have done to Egypt.
Mitzrayim. So now they're going back to the verse that we began. So he says to us, now you can understand everything else. So you have seen what I have done to Egypt. Again, using Mitzrayim. Egypt, he uses the Hebrew word, Mitzrayim. Which is what? Remember I told you what Mitzrayim means.
Darkness?
In addition to darkness, a very narrow path. Egypt is Mitzrayim, Meitzar Yam. It's a very, very tiny way to go through someplace, to another place. Not enough room for everyone to go through. Mitzrayim, go on.
I myself have brought it about that a person falls into a strait.
That's what it is. Mitzrayim is a very narrow strait. Isn't it interesting? Why would the word for Egypt will be a very narrow strait? Because once you go through Egypt, you are not the same on the other side. We all have Egypt in our lives. We all have darkness in our lives. How do we come out of it? And sometimes it's very straight, very narrow, and you need someone to be able to give you a hand and pull you out. Sometimes we can do it by ourselves. Many times we need help. Many times we need help. And it's okay. And it's okay to ask for help. That's why friendship is so important. That's why intimate friendship is so important. Not only with God, but with each other. Go on. We have learned.
We have learned that one always has to be in a state of back and forth. It is impossible to stand still on a single run. But an intelligent person who contemplates this with the inner mind will understand that this too comes from God. God is to be found garbed in that
Many times when we go to Egypt, we assume that God doesn't exist. Are you kidding? God is always there. Our intellectual abilities at those moments when darkness is around us is diminished a little bit. We're not able to see clearly, be completely aware of what's going on. So we assume immediately that God is not there. I mean, this ability to teach, for example, and I mentioned it last time, the theology that comes out of the Holocaust. It took some time to develop that, but because it was such chaotic results. But I really believe that God was also there in the crematorium. It doesn't make sense that God will not be there. The fact that I didn't see God there, the Holocaust survivor, not the physical, it's because we couldn't understand what's going on there. But God was there. And this is what's coming up in books now and theological discussions about where was God in the Holocaust. He was there. We did not have the ability at that moment because we are so drowned in chaos and sadness and gas. They didn't have the ability to see that God was there. It's interesting how many years it took us to discover that God was there.
There's a famous line, I believe in the sun when it's not shining. I believe in love when I don't feel it. And I believe in God even when God is silent.
Yeah.
It was found on a wall.
On the wall of one of the crematoriums. Beautiful. A poem that someone wrote in the last minute. Let's finish. The value.
The value of your seeing this is that I raised you upon, higher than the wings of eagles, and have brought you to me. It is all due to God's help. When you reach
Chokhmah. Chokhmah is wisdom. When you reach Chokhmah,
true inner wisdom, you will serve God even without that feathered garment. I have brought you to me.
Elai.
I have brought you to the letter Yod Chokhmah, beyond all the 7 categories of Gar, to the place where there are no feathers.
Yeah, that's the goal, guys. We need to get to a place with no feathers in our lives. Nothing that creates a partition between us and God. So, I brought you to me, Elai. Elai ends up with the letter Yud. Yud is one of the 4 letters of the tetragram, Yahweh. So when he says Elai, I brought you to the Yud, that is me. And that's a place where there are no feathers. So the whole purpose of Mount Sinai was to elevate people to a whole different task, closer to God, to understand what this God of ours is all about. The commandments were, in a way, gifts to be able to get closer. And that's what the 613 commandments do. When I have a commandment that tells me that I need, for example, to pray, or I have a commandment that tells me the blessing before the meal and a blessing after the meal, and I say the blessing, those are all ways of getting closer to God. The commandments are instruments where we can get closer to God. Now, we have in our tradition 613. I already mentioned to you that some of them we cannot really observe. Some of them can only be observed in the land of Israel, and some of them can only be observed if a temple is built, and some of them can be observed only if we have a king. At this moment, we don't have a king, we don't have a temple, we have a land of Israel, but we are here in Omaha, Nebraska. So what happens? Don't worry, we have all kind of other commandments that you can do here. So, those are all tools to go through the portals. And you see, for example, sometimes on Saturday, if you drive on Pacific, you see people walking to a synagogue because they cannot use the car. Those are people that are living a life of commandments. So Also, the commandments of dealing with each other. We have so many commandments about gossip. Not thou shalt do gossip. The opposite. I mean, the way we talk, the language. We have commandments about what language we can use in relationship. I mean, so it's commandments about relationship between me and God, and then commandments about between us. I always view the commandments about God in less importance than what God wants us to do with each other. But those are also commandments that need to be observed. But I'm not worried about God as much as I worry about us. I trust God in whatever garb he appears, or she. The Shekhinah. So Shekhinah is my way of looking at God as a merciful mother. Many of you saw the movie, I'm sure, All That Jazz. To be kissed by Jacqueline Bisset at the end of the movie, I changed my entire God theology from male to female. It was amazing. That movie changed serious theological concepts in my head. Please see the movie again. Every movie for me is a religious movie. I have difficulty going with my wife to movies because we walk out and I saw something completely different in the movie. She, by the way, fell asleep on the movie we saw a few days ago. She said it was so boring. I kept my eyes open. Oh my God. Everyone sees God garbed differently. By the way, it helps us. I mean, I think there's a connection between our theology with God and our illnesses. I think it's all connected. I think we need to deal when we are sick, and the sickness is, in a way, another moment of garbing God. Everything is connected. We just need to be aware of this. And we already discovered that awareness is number one in trying to understand what this is all about. How awake are we? Okay. We have some more time, beautiful, because I want to get to the next verse. Look at the verse that says, they stood beneath the mountain. That's what the commentary is. It's Kedushat Levi, number 1. That's a different writer, different Hasidic master. They stood beneath the mountain. That's the exact translation of the verse in Hebrew. What's the problem with the verse? Come on. Look at the verse again.
Beneath?
Yeah, beneath.
Not at the bottom of, but beneath?
Which means what? Can be interpreted as what?
The mountains on top of them?
Totally. Do you think they accepted the commandment so easily, those people that left Egypt? God had to do something to convince them to accept the commandments. Guess what? He brought the mountain over them and said, if you don't take it, I'm dropping it on you. What an interesting verse. So what's the problem with God dropping the mountain on them? So maybe they accepted the Torah because they were afraid of what? The mountain dropping on them. Sometimes there are moments in our life when a mountain is above us and we are so afraid, so scared, so fearful of what will be the next action. You know what? You need to get over it. You need to get over the fear to get to the love. You need to get over the awe and the mystery of the mountain falling on you, because you need to get to the gate of love. Okay, so look at this. Who would like to do it? The reading, please. Rabbi Jacob said what? Continue.
This teaches that the blessed
the Talmud, Babylonian Talmud, in Tractate Shabbat, page 88, side A. So even the rabbis working with the Hebrew of the language, that's why, again, I'm going to repeat my mantra, reading work in translation is kissing a bride through a veil. It's problematic. I think this is what the Jewish community can do to this church, this Hebrew idea. Looking at the verses in complete nakedness, not through a translation. Because the Hebrew says, betachtit ha'ar, under the mountain. So you read this verse hundreds of times in English, in translation, and it doesn't translate that way. Go on.
Tosafot, how do you say that word?
Tosafot, one of the commentary.
Tosafot notes on this passage, even though they had already said, we shall do, before we shall listen, because they might have turned back due to the great fire, which caused them to faint. The Talmud adds, this raises a great objection to the Torah, that is, the question of whether it was willfully accepted.
Yeah, that's they said, let us hear, and then they said, let us learn. I mean, now the rabbis have a problem with this verse. They will need to open it, unpack it for us. So that's the part of the commentary. By the way, according to the tradition, when God spoke, everyone fainted. That was the first time that they heard God's voice. No one was alive at that moment. They recovered after that. Can you imagine that moment? I mean, God speaks to us, but this is the first time that this revelation took place. So now the teaching continues. We need
to understand what they meant by saying, we shall do before we shall listen. How do you accept something before hearing what it is?
Yeah. So that's what they were willing to accept God's words and commandments before even hearing it. Complete acceptance. Now comes the commentary.
To understand this, we need to turn to the Passover Haggadah's verse. Had he brought us before Mount Sinai and not given us the Torah, it would have been enough.
Yeah, so in the Passover compendium, we Jews don't do anything easy. Passover. We have a whole book of the Haggadah, the telling of the story. And what's wonderful about that book is that every family adds, you have more and more creative Haggadahs. Every family adds pages to the Haggadah about their own exit from Egypt, so to speak. Then it becomes like an heirloom for the family to keep with pictures of other people that left Egypt, so to speak, before them. It's a wonderful way of preserving history of families. So there is a verse, had he brought us before Mount Sinai and not given us the Torah, it could be enough. There's a song. It will be enough just to bring us to the mountain. Even without giving us the Torah. That was enough, because they already experienced the redemption from Egypt. Go on.
We have to ask what value there would have been in coming near to Mount Sinai without receiving the Torah.
So what's the value in getting the mountain without receiving a Torah? They go deeper and deeper. Is coming to the mountain enough? The rabbis will, of course, say no. Without receiving the Torah, who are we going to be? So, what? No, because they look at the Torah as something so powerful. If they were just tourists at the bottom of the mountain without receiving the Torah, who are we going to be?
Just tourists.
Maybe nothing. Maybe we'll not be anything. I mean, the discipline came. It took some time to leave Egypt and heal themselves from the evil of servitude. That's why they took them to the mountain. He couldn't give the Torah in Egypt. Why would anyone listen to the teaching of God while you're a slave? Who wants to hear more burden? Receiving the Torah is a burden. Doing the commandments, it's a burden. It's called yoke. So, I mean, why would I go to Egypt as God and try to convince them there? Guys, stop from building pyramids. Let me tell you what else I want from you. What? He had to take them to the desert, to the landscape, bring them to the mountain. Only there they can receive. Only there they can hear. There were no way to hear anything else in Egypt. So go on.
Our sages say that Abraham, our father, fulfilled the entire Torah before it was given. Even the laws of Sabbath, food preparation on a festival, clearly a rabbinic innovation.
Yeah, so in the Talmud, there's a teaching that Abraham already, before the Torah was given, he knew everything. It makes Abraham what?
How did Father Abraham know that?
No, I'm asking. Why would they come up with this teaching? Because if you remember, 3 characters appear to Abraham. And what is he doing? The welcoming of Abraham of those 3 people, or whatever, angels, we don't know what, that will announce the birth of his son. What is he doing? He runs, or he sends his kid, one of the kids, to fetch what? No, that's another story of Abraham. But to fetch a meat and milk. He makes a dish of meat and milk. What? How can Abraham mix meat and milk in giving the dish to those angels? He knew it from the beginning, the Torah. He knew kosher rules, even before the Torah was given. That's a way to explain that verse. He never made a mistake. He separated, whatever. Everyone in the tradition is active in every other scene that happens. We're all in it. We're, in a way, all characters that are playing in the Torah. It's all known to us. Continue.
How did Father Abraham know the Torah before it had been given? The 248 positive commandments of the Torah parallel our 248 spiritual limbs. Torah's 365 prohibitions are parallel to our 365 spiritual sinews.
Okay, so it was already what? In his body. So the 613 commandments are divided to positive and negative. Okay? So it's fascinating that they know how many spiritual sinews we have. But this is what the rabbis do. They teach. So you have 248 positive commandments. The reason why they were given, because they parallel our body. And you have also the negative, and the negative parallel our sinews. Now continue reading. One who gazes
upon his own spiritual limbs and sinews can know them all. Just as our bodily limbs require certain sustenance, so too is each of our spiritual limbs fulfilled by a particular mitzvah. And just as our physical limbs do not need to be taught what food they need, so too do our spiritual limbs grasp the mitzvah of their own accord. The very life force of our spiritual limbs and sinews are the commandments themselves. Spirituality is a sublimation of our ordinary mind and thought processes. In its ultimately rarefied form, it is nothing other than the mitzvah.
Wow. So it was in Abraham's body already. The 613 commandments were known because there's a correlation between the commandments and our bodies. Everything in our body reflects the commandments. What is this hand for? How can this hand be part of the system of mitzvot, of commandments? What am I supposed to do with this hand? Come on, talk to me. Give. What else? Hug. What else? Work. What is the purpose of my nose? No, but connect this to a commandment. What? Yeah. Living breath. What about the ear? Listen, be present. There are commandments about this. So everything in our body is connected to the commandments. So you guys are all Jews. Yeah. In a way. You guys didn't know that. No, but you have the same body that I have. All of us have bodies. What is the purpose of the body? How can the body be a tool of teaching you what to do? Brilliant. Every part of our body is connected to one of the commandments. I'm sure if I gave you now 15 minutes, not to be silent, but 15 minutes of trying to attach every organ of your body to another commandment, you guys will come with amazing lists. Think about your body and how the body that was created by God can help you get to God. The body is also a vehicle. One of the things that those Hasidic teachers taught us, that you can be actually physically here and not here at the same time. I mean, one of the beautiful things that we did at Temple Israel, we brought stones from Jerusalem and built the temple with stones from Jerusalem. We didn't search for the stones in Nebraska. By the way, it was cheaper to bring them from Jerusalem than doing it from Nebraska. And they arrived on time, and we built the building. But what am I doing on Friday? Friday I come to pray at the synagogue. Am I in that synagogue, or is there a way for me to be at the same time in Jerusalem? Because the goal is to be in Jerusalem and pray there. So there is those journeys. Jews are the one who invented those time machines. That I can be here and actually, I'm talking to you, but I'm not here now. And I have the ability, if I go through the ranks, climbing every time and get higher and higher and higher, to be able to be there at the same time that I'm here. So the limbs are our flying machine, our doing machine. And think about it. Go for a week and think about all the organs you have and how to use them. Now, some of them I'll use more freely than others, so be careful. Yeah, you have to be careful. You have to be careful about what commandments and how you do it. Not grudgingly. You have to do it with love. Go to the next page. Okay, you know what? Okay, so this is your assignment. Read on your own the next part, but also read on your own the rest of the material here. We can only do so much in the short time, and the time goes so fast. Thank you.
Thank you.
Remember, next week, 9 o'clock for omelets.
So I'm late. So I'm late.
We're talking about the
After